wasn't the whole building. They didn't rip off everything that was still good.
Yeah.
They just replaced what wasn't. And I guess, once again, procedure-wise, it should have came before the board, and the board should have decided, yes, Charlie, in cluster 5 replaced all gable ends to stucco, so they match.
Yeah.
Or tell them it's okay to just replace the damaged ones.
Correct.
And if the next hurricane comes and damages the others, okay, then it should be stucco then at
Yeah,
that point.
I mean, yeah, that's a perfect, you know.
And that's what we did. I mean, when you made your proposal and you asked for the approval to get it done, you specifically said we're going to change it. So did Robin at our meetings.
Oh, so you had that in there, okay.
It was said that they were going to change it because of the issues that they had. And so we approved it. And I approved it as a board member because even though I have the other siding, I've seen in other places this, and it needed to be fixed. And I guess
And
I mean,
that's
that was
why
my
we're
reason.
talking about.
Well,
Tell
because
me,
it's,
hey, stop.
well, because somebody questioned it, and they have a right to question it, Michael.
No,
It's
well,
like-
right, they can question it,
And
but
so-
we handled it properly, so.
Well-
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's questionable whether you handed it
Because-
100% because
Because
it's border, it's
even though the
borderline.
board said, yes, we're approving it,
Yeah.
it's still technically, we missed the step of actually sending it out and getting it
Asking
approved
them.
from
Right.
each cluster,
That-
or the cluster themselves.
That would have been
Oh.
safer because it's,
So again,
Right.
that's where we're getting into the procedure part of this, is we gotta just start operating procedure-wise.
Yeah.
And not saying where I wanted to jump in, and only speaking on myself, you may be able to enlighten a little more. I'm really shocked at some things. Yes, with the dog thing, there's a procedure. There's a procedure with everything. I don't know everything. That's why I'm relying on experts. I have no idea. That's why I call a plumber, because I don't know how to fix the plumbing.
Okay, I understand now.
Well,
I didn't get
But
it
at the end of the
there.
day,
Yeah.
I'm really shocked and surprised at some point we haven't gotten sued.
Robin and Charlie, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus, but this is the first time I heard that only half a building was
yeah, I
done.
know.
So,
Okay, it's not like half of one end is being done.
no, I know
No,
what you mean,
no,
but this
Okay,
end, but
that's
the one
what
down
I
here is not. Yeah.
It's the whole of one end, so
Okay.
when you look at it,
It's
Stuck.
okay.
It- yeah.
looks great, I mean,
Alright.
it's like.
So that, I'm sorry?
It looks half done.
Half done.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
painted
Yeah,
yet.
it's not finished yet, so it is.
So-
yeah,
It's
done.
not that.
But to answer your
It's not
question,
siding.
to answer your question,
Cool.
you know, on that decision, there's nothing, that decision could have been made, probably should have been gone to an owner vote. Can you do half? That's probably budgetary concerns as well, so it's a business judgment rule, whether you want to do half, all of it. I mean, you're not limitless with money, so I'm assuming that's why, if there was stuff that was good, if there wasn't damage, you didn't want to replace it. But,
Is Robin one and two like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And correct, I mean, let's just face it, with cluster 3, it was definitely money. You know, we had storm damage and we didn't have money for it. and
If
we
we would have had the
fixed-
money to do all of them, we would have done all of them.
Well,
But,
yeah.
you know.
Janet,
Yeah.
when I went to do ours over, the price was comparable between the siding, getting different siding, and the stucco, but we couldn't match the siding, so that's why I elected to go to stucco route, and then I figured that would be good for, in case, God forbid, we have another hurricane, at least it would be the gables that were damaged, I ended up doing with the stucco. Afterwards, and we had more wind, I've lost more siding on other gables, which I need to repair now, but it's too late to be under the hurricane clause that we had. So, you know, that's another issue we're addressing. So it is an endless thing, even though we did do stucco, I still have gables that have siding on them.
I have a question for you, Robin.
Can you hear Nancy? She has a question for you.
No,
Okay, the question is this. You are trying to match beige or cream-colored siding, in essence. Cream-colored
and then,
siding is dang near everywhere, at every different home improvement store anybody is gonna carry cream colored siding. How was it that it wasn't the same? The color can be off by a titch. It doesn't have to be exactly the same color. However, siding that's cream with siding that's cream does not come out to be a material alteration.
Did you hear that?
I can answer that.
She said that it was not, siding is not, materialistic.
No, that's
No,
not what I
she
said.
said siding that was cream with siding that was cream would not be a would not be a material alteration, and there's cream siding everywhere, and you probably could have found siding
I can answer.
for that. Charlie would like to answer.
Okay, so we have vertical siding, which was a terrible choice from the start. And it's a certain style, and no one could come up with vertical siding similar to the product that we had, or that we still have on parts of our property. So they wanted to go with horizontal siding. Well, that's an obviously terrible choice. And, I mean, we had people looking for that particular kind of siding, they could not find it, so.
So I'm curious, if you went with horizontal siding of the same color, that wouldn't be a material change?
No, I think,
You've got vertical siding on some and horizontal on another, but if they're the same
You would
color.
have to do it all.
you would have still had
Oh,
a
you
siding.
still have to do it all.
Siding material.
Oh, so it doesn't matter.
Siding material would have been the same, just the only change would have been the horizontal nature of it. Probably the same color, and it would have still been the two tones, so
Right.
you eliminate some of that stuff.
But we'd still have to do all of them.
Well, to make it look
make it
uniform,
look
so you don't
uniform.
look
Make
afraid.
it uniform.
Maybe what, there's two sections that have this, and you still have half of it done. Maybe one solution is go to your owners and have a vote. Maybe you don't have the money for the budget now in those two individual sections. Plan for the future changeover of the siding to the stucco, a year out, 2 years, get the vote and plan for it and save for it, no?
Where's the money? I mean, we don't have the money.
Got it.
Nobody wants their fees raised, so it's.
And assessments are painful.
Yes.
We all
Oh,
know
yeah.
that. We all know that. I don't think that the change to stucco was a bad move. What I have been questioning is the fact that
Robin, mute yourself,
they
we hear
did
you.
not follow the procedures. That was my question.
Well,
They
and
didn't get the approvals. They didn't.
no one
You're
got
saying we didn't follow procedure, Shannon, am I hearing that correctly?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
But nobody has.
Okay.
Nobody has.
So, what happened, Nancy, was I did follow procedure, I got 3 estimates, and I did talk to the contractors, and they all agreed that the same thing, that it would not match. So the
That's
best
not
way
a
was to either
Well,
go with something that wasn't going to match, or to do stucco, which will match the other clusters.
That wasn't the
That's
procedure.
part of the procedure. But the other part of the procedure is presenting that to the board for the board to decide, and then from there, sending a proxy out to your cluster of what the plan was.
And that was
The
not
full-
Charlie and Robin's mistake. I
Right.
did not advise on that. I did not think that was necessary.
So again, this is not a clear-cut case. Like, I have clear-cut cases all the time of material alterations, but because of the lack of the product, because of the benefit to the buildings, there are some cases out there that provide an exception to the material alteration. So it's this borderline case that, so I don't think anybody did anything really
So-
wrong. I think, it could go either way. Conservatively, probably should have went out for a vote, but that might just be being conservative on that. I like to be a little more conservative on material alterations. But I can't tell you, you go to a judge tomorrow, they're gonna say, rip that down and put that other siding up.
So
So-
internally, how do we handle this? How do we clear it up? How do we make it right? Or is there no going backwards? How do we just,
Yeah, so
Nobody's complaining.
yeah, nobody's
There's no
complaining.
complaints.
You don't wanna go, you have really good, the stuff that they've done. I'm sure it's done pretty good, and it's done, it's waterproof, it looks great. Maybe at some point when the money's available, get the vote through the rest of the buildings.
But it needs to be
but-
done in the procedural
Yeah.
way.
I would just try to get a vote, and I'd just get a vote for everybody. But then also, when you have things that come up, ask first before you, it's gonna change something, if it's the exact same thing, but if it's gonna change it where it's form, function, use, or appearance, send an email first. and
Should
then-
they get the vote now, for this and the future? You know, like for anytime there's, how would you word it? Like anytime there's damage, or as soon as you have the funds, we need to replace at least the other end of the building, or what do
Yeah,
you?
I mean, we could put out a vote to those affected clusters and say, we would like your approval to modify the building to remove all of the,
Gable siding.
gable siding, replace it with stucco, and then we just put an informational, we don't know when that's gonna be, it's gonna be when funds are available, or if there's damage, and, we won't make promises that we can't, deliver on. And then if we get that approval, it's open-ended. So if it takes 3 years, we have 3 years, to get the funds. If the storm comes through and you get some insurance proceeds, you're able to do it this summer, then you do it this summer. But it just kinda clears it up a little bit.
Do you and Robin, I know you don't have a penny, but you do have a penny. Do you want to have the attorney prepare that
No.
vote?
Well, I have a suggestion. Why don't you, I know it's gonna be another year, but when we send out our proxies for our next meeting, why don't we just add that to that same form? We don't have another meeting for cluster 5 and cluster 4, 3. And so you don't have to have another mailing for it, since there's not a big hurry about it. Then we've taken care of that process, and then we can just keep on.
I'm gonna just put it out there blunt, you still have to pay for it out of your budget, so do you want that proxy then or now? Or, I mean, it doesn't matter when he prepares it, we mail it out when we're ready.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
if you're doing, it's gonna be
Can it go
cheaper,
in the same envelope?
instead of doing multiple business
Absolutely.
proxies, I just give you the language to insert in the proxy. Here you go, here's the language for the vote, so.
Can we, and the voting, the proxies, all of that stuff, I won't say, not unclear, but, can we do multiple things on one proxy?
Yeah.
So we can just send one proxy out, but it covers this, updating declarations.
Yeah, you either say you're for this and against that, right?
Well, in the past, when we've done a multi, you tell me if we're doing it correct, but in the past, like, it would be the same proxy for all 6 clusters, but maybe I make Charlie's blue, and it has that one additional section for them to vote on. Maybe I make Robin's pink, and it has that one additional section
That's
for
fine,
them to
yeah.
vote on.
Okay, but you're not putting multiple things.
For
Okay.
different clusters on the same proxy, only the ones that pertain to all of you, such as maybe waiving the audit or, things
Yeah,
like that.
But you can
on
have
one.
multiple of those for everyone.
Well, but I guess, and just speaking, I don't wanna go down this road again, I wanna keep, if we're gonna go with stucco, replacing the siding, let's do it for every cluster. Let's do it.
But some don't need the vote even. Who has stucco already? Do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'd be cluster 6,
Yeah, we don't.
3, and 5.
So either way, I'm doing blue, pink, yellow, I'm doing other colors for those to vote on it, because Michael's homeowners wouldn't vote on it, Nancy's wouldn't vote on it.
Okay.
And we just pick the ones that have that, and again, we put language in there that this may not be for a year, 6 months, it just, you've got the approval when it's, time comes and the money's there, or a storm hits and damages it, then you can do it at that time.
All right, now tell me, you don't even think that's necessary?
No, I mean, if we ever get the money, we'll bring it up for a vote and we'll do it. But it's like, this is preparing for something that may never happen, because the way the money is, it may not happen for years. And so now you're gonna vote something in that sits on the desk for 3 or 4 years. I mean, you're making a mountain over a molehill. That's
Well,
my
but,
opinion.
okay, then let's move on, because,
Can I have Janet, would you just talk about this for a minute?
We
owner?
can't do that,
We
right?
can't do
No,
that.
you can't.
Yeah.
Because we're not done with this section.
Well, we're done with Gables.
Well, we're done with
No.
Gables, but we're not
No,
done with
no,
this
no.
section. We're gonna
Everybody
follow
else
how
has
you
to
want
do
it
it.
to
That's
be
fine,
followed.
that's fine.
And then
All right,
Well, so now we do have the roof.
yeah, that's, it's kind of, the roof thing is kind of,
The roof thing should not be any bigger than what this
It's,
was.
and it's not, because by what he said, the board needs,
The
Wait,
cluster
wait.
needed to vote on
Not the
it.
attorney answer.
The cluster needed to say what they wanted.
yeah, and they didn't, and, you know, it also goes back to the oversight of the board on, you know, contract execution. I don't know all the history on it, but, you know, all contracts, the board should see, you know, and there should be a, whether it's delegated to the cluster director, the communications, but changes, or the board should have known what was going on that.
Why didn't we know that before? Why wasn't that ever brought to our attention before that the board, because in all honesty, I did not know that we were supposed to bring every little thing that we needed done or wanted done.
It's not a little thing.
I'm not saying it is. I'm saying
Ends up-
everything that we need or want done to the board's attention. Because we did theoretically have that $2,000 limit. So there have been many of projects that I've completed in my cluster that have been under $2,000
Yep.
and have kept the place running. But this was a different thing. I repeatedly told them, we have gone with classic. We are doing this. We did choose a color. As a matter of fact, it was actually on the contract. That ain't the color we got. And the reason we didn't get it was because the color was not available and would not be available for a minimum of 36 months. Who in the hell is gonna wait for 36 months?
What color did you choose?
It was called,
I don't care what it was
it
called.
was darker, but it was an architectural stucco or an architectural shingle with the multicolors, like I have a couple of others on our buildings already that have architectural shingles. But it was probably closer to that, but it had, in my opinion, too dang much red.
Right, but we have the same shingles throughout the community, and I had no problem, they had no problem matching my shingles.
I'm
They
telling
had
you
no
what was
problem matching
available for
Charlie's. Well, this all happened at the same time.
Yes,
So
I
the
know.
fact that you
But
say they weren't available, they
I'm
were readily
saying-
available.
I'm saying the shingles I ordered were
Right.
not available.
Right,
And the
But
shingles I ordered
weren't
are not
consistent.
like all of the others.
Correct.
They were architectural because they match what's on my buildings. What is on my building. And why would I go with a fifth kind of shingle? When I've already got architectural shingles
Well-
on 2 sections of our building. I've got it on 2 sections of our building.
There's-
What am I supposed to do, spray paint it?
no,
No.
there's architectural shingles on all the buildings, and that's, I don't wanna get tit for tat. Honestly, I'll be the first one to say it. I actually like the color.
It's modern,
But
it's.
Yeah, but that's not the point,
I get it's not the point.
right?
But at the end of the day, I'm not gonna say, I'm not gonna vote or make a motion for her to rip her shingles off. I'm okay
Waste of money.
with,
Let Jeremy give us the option.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm gonna say some options, so nobody jump over the table and, get at me. But I think we've learned some today. What?
Can't promise that.
No, so some of them are bad, some of them are good, so it's gonna, you know, I tell everybody all of the options, but it goes back to what I was trying to make the point earlier is the board members, we all gotta communicate with the board and be very specific, and the board approves the project. If there's gonna be a deviation, whatever it is, should come back before the board for a determination so that we're not here going, oh, well, half the buildings are one color, half not, half are, yeah, I didn't even know that the gables were only on half of the buildings that were damaged. We should all have more information provided to the board so that they can, you know, make informed decisions. But on the roof, all right, so what's the worst, you know, most aggressive thing is, all right, well, if there are that color available, and you say they're available, the board could say, well, we're gonna enter into a contract, we're gonna rip those shingles off, and we're gonna put new shingles on. So the board has that authority, but that's harsh, and that community, that individual cluster would be the one that would bear the cost of that. So that's one option the board could do. The other option would be, all right, well, we just kind of suggested for the other sections with the gable issue is, well, if that community wants that color, let's go through the process of putting it out for a vote and let them vote on that color, if they want to have that color or not. Likely they're going to say, yeah, they will vote probably that color because they don't want to have to rip the one off. So they're going to vote and then at least make all the buildings the same. And then the third, which is, I really wouldn't, I would feel less comfortable if not do a vote at all and just finish the buildings as they are. Or so we finish the building with those colors. So those are kind of your options that could be done, and the board can kind of direct how this could go.
How is this different from the stucco?
Well, it could be the same thing.
How is it different?
It could be the
right?
same thing. We could rip off
because if there's a director that has a problem with inconsistencies, you've got half stucco and half siding. Okay, but now that same director has a roof that's half this color and half another color. What's the difference in these two conundrums?
In your options, before you answer Mike, when you said follow the voting procedure, just to be clear, Nancy's replacing, I think, I don't even know. You're replacing 2 full buildings, right? But not the rest.
2 full buildings, and then the 2 flats.
But the flats don't matter.
No, they don't, because they're different color.
Well, but they're
They're flat.
flat.
So
So
all
not
of your
all of
shingles
it.
would be the same as what you have right now, the new shingles.
The
is that
north
the-
and south buildings would be the same. The other 2, we can't afford another $45,000.
Right, well, they can't either.
Well, we're all in the same boat here then, aren't we?
It appears that way.
Yeah.
But for
But you
some
know what the
reason you're-
difference is, Michael?
What?
Michael, the difference is this, I did not choose the color of those shingles. And I feel like I am being targeted, and I'm so sick of
You
it.
just said
I
you
could-
chose the color and they
I
didn't
gave
have them
them
in
the
stock.
color, they weren't
Yeah,
in stock, so
right.
they put something else on the building. I didn't approve that color. I
Right.
never
Then
saw
there's
the
your
damn.
So, I mean,
There's your
so-
problem. If they
No,
did it without your
hold on,
authorization.
so there's a 4th option.
Yeah. Sue the contractor.
Sue the contractor.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna do that
Well,
either.
but you're saying that they put it on
What
without
I
your
told them,
authorization.
Let's
what
just-
I told them was, I have to have that brown color. They have to be in the brown family. I want an architectural shingle. I've told you guys, they were gonna be architectural
Right, we
shingles.
have architectural
That they were
shingles.
going to be brown, but they weren't the same color brown. And I told you that at the last meeting. Nobody said a dang word. Nobody questioned, how different are they gonna be? At that point, I would've had to go back to the contractor, because I didn't know.
Right, you didn't even know.
Correct.
I did not know.
Correct, correct.
But what we have are shingles that we paid the cheap price for that have a 50-year warranty on them. They are thicker. They will not crack. The wind should not be able to bend them up and break them off the way it's doing with all these old, lower quality shingles.
Just how stucco is better than.
And I don't
siding.
disagree with that. I've said that all along. Stucco was a much better move, but the process is the same issue. We're in the same boat with the process. Go to your.
Because you're
Wait
acting
till
like-
we're done.
No,
Wait till we're done.
We're not yet.
They're not
asking questions.
Not yet.
We'll
We're
open
wait
the
if
floor
you're
in a
gonna
second.
start off.
Yeah, I think it goes back, so
Continuity.
whenever we're
Just sit down.
considering work on the outside, I think we need, as a board, need to be more diligent about
Absolutely.
knowing what the colors are, knowing what the
Why aren't
materials
all the
are,
other
Absolutely.
and making sure that everybody knows what's going
Yeah,
on.
and how do we do that? How do we put that
Yes,
in,
and stay
into,
careful.
By following the procedure.
By-
Yeah.
well, bringing the contract to the board.
Questions about continuity.
And that's what
That's what he's gonna do.
The resolutions
Up
that he's
until
going to,
now,
correct.
I don't agree
So
with that.
tell me now, on your, do each individual cluster director, do you go out and get your own bids for the contractors?
Yeah,
and-
we did.
They have until we've shifted stuff to
Yeah.
Janet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, 'cause typically your role is, don't you usually go out and say, okay, here's my network of contractors, I bring people in, and you bring them in and then present, present to the board?
And it would be nice to work with, I won't say one roofer in the community, not 6, and
Right.
work with one contractor and not 6.
And I've been doing that.
Yes.
The past couple months, they've given it to me, but I do
Yep.
wanna say something, and Nancy, I'm not saying it to argue with you, but I do want it out there. I have told this board in person and in email that they need to be voting on these things together and presenting. The only person who's really brought anything forth is Charlie, has said, here, I have 3 bids, and he's read them off, but even Charlie isn't to the point yet where we're presenting them to everybody so they can see them before we vote. The only thing is, if one cluster director knows that building or those buildings, that cluster so well, obviously, you're pretty much gonna take their recommendation on what goes on there. Cause somebody else might not have anything to do with that, that's the point
But
of
that
having the director.
recommendation
But
should be given to the board.
all of you,
Well,
right, collectively.
Correct, and that's where we talked about with contractors, you verifying that that contractor is licensed,
Insured.
certified, insured, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's where you are our fail-safe to where if a contractor isn't, and something happens and we get sued, and he goes, well, he wasn't licensed and insured.
That's on CNS.
Yeah, but also, do you run it through
It's
Janet?
actually not on
Yeah.
CNS, but contract.
If you run it through CNS, and like, what happens is, if the contractor does a bad job in their office on one of their buildings, every manager's gonna know about it, and like, so if Janet had people brought to her, oh, here's a contractor we like, well, you're probably gonna lean on your other people, have you heard about this one? I haven't heard about, whatever the name of the roofing company is, and, oh, yeah, we had them, and we had a problem in our community, and you may wanna exclude that one. So her office is a great, set of resources. I know the word gets around if there's bad contractors or contractors that don't show up or do a poor quality and things like that. So utilize Janet, and she can help organize it, present it to you as the board, so you can have an organized vote and have all the information you need.
But that's a good point. If Nancy wasn't right there watching when they started the roof, and you guys had seen the contract and seen the color, you could have said something had you seen it right then, not after most of the roof was on. And same with Charlie's, Charlie did bring it before the board and talk about it, but I don't think we discussed, I don't think material alteration came up at all during that. Charlie was he came and explained clearly, what he needed on his gables and why, but.
Well, I think the roof was brought up pretty quick. I mean, they laid those pretty quick, but they only got that one section
Yeah.
before, I guess you put the brakes on it or
And let's,
whatever.
I mean, are we gonna sue the roofing contractor?
Nope.
I wouldn't like to. I don't wanna get into a lawsuit, that's just gonna cause more money and more problems and more issues.
Well, it brings us to another point. What we talked about as far as changing colors and so on and so forth. It's a possibility
What do you mean?
What's a possibility?
as far as changing colors. You and I have spoken about this, and you were going to propose, but I know because Jeremy's here tonight, we had to cut the agenda a little bit shorter about changing some of the colors in this
Yes.
complex.
Yes. And that's where I'm stepping back a little bit and saying, how do we clean this up? Do we make one vote, keep our costs simple, instead of let's do one proxy for this and one proxy for that? We can sit as a board and go, hey, look, let's do these 4 proxies. I don't want a proxy that's 9 pages long. But can we do the stucco, the roof, and get rid of the green if the community so chooses?
Yes, you could come up with votes that would, if you came up with a color scheme or the material scheme and all of that, and you as a board decided, okay, these are the things that we would like to be able to allow buildings to do when they have the money, we could organize it, put it out for a vote, and then, okay, those votes are approved. All right, if there's money, you want to eliminate the green, your section could do that, or you want to have a certain color roof, okay, you can do that, but it's gotta be all the roofs. We could come up with something that allow you to vote and give you that flexibility, but also take it into account that you may not have the money right away for all the sections.
But how long do we wait as far as making some of these changes are concerned, if we're gonna make it all stucco and not half and half? How long are we expected to wait before we get compliance with those buildings? I mean, are we supposed to sit there and say, okay, it's 12 years later and we still are half and half? Because no hurricane has come along and blown the siding off the building?
How soon do you anticipate doing your roof all over the same color?
I was just gonna say.
Well, what?
Years, 5 years.
Okay.
It'll be
I
5
just-
years.
Thank you.
And I know that's not
What's that,
tomorrow.
east-west?
That's
Yeah, that
east-west buildings.
east-west.
That's not tomorrow, but we're looking at about 5 years before those are due to be replaced.
Okay.
And that gives us time to save the money toward them.
Yeah.
So-
And if it took
And
three
we all have to be slightly compassionate. We don't have any money. It's not a secret. I asked Janet for some money for some bushes. Guess what I got told? No. Don't use all the toilet paper in the clubhouse, because I tell you what,
I bought the
Bring
one,
your
but I'm
own.
not buying any more.
there ain't no more. There's no money for toilet paper. There's no money. We have no money. And unless people want to raise HOA fees or everybody get a special
Would it
assessment.
make sense to say that her roof has to be done within that 5 years? His gables have to be done within that 5 years?
So then what you're doing is, because you each have your individual budgets.
Right.
That's what you're
Would
gonna
that
be
make
planning
sense?
for when you're doing all your budgeting and your reserving, you know.
Because
you know,
she says she's gonna do it in 5 years, but she says God knows when they're gonna do it, right? So,
And guess what?
could we put a limit on it?
Yeah,
A 5
and
year?
you as the board get to decide that. So I know that's your one of your communities, but all of the board gets to decide when the second half of your building. Because that's what everybody in the, in that section, that cluster, elected
Right.
everybody to direct. They
Right.
bought into this system where they're gonna lose some of the control for the board to make the decisions.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a board making some of the decisions, you may not get anything done because everybody's gonna be thinking about their pocketbook all the time.
When you ask to put a limit on it, I wanna clear something up. You're talking about the things that are half and half. Nancy's roof,
Right,
Charlie's,
right.
Amos, Robin's. You're not saying everybody has to have that
No,
color
no,
roof
no, no.
within 5
No,
years.
no,
And they
I'm
all
saying-
have,
No,
and
no, no,
Edna
I'm
has
saying
that.
she
No, no.
just said that she's gonna have the rest of her cluster all roofed the same within 5 years,
That's the hope.
okay?
That's not a
So-
definitive, that's
Okay,
not
but
a.
then,
Yeah, what if
Yeah,
there's
right.
another hurricane?
well, we know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
here, your question to Charlie is, you're just gonna leave it
How
open?
long
and-
is it going to be
Yeah,
half and half?
Right.
And that's, I'm not questioning, you're questioning me. I'm saying.
Is it 5 years?
There
Yeah.
needs to
Is
be
that
something.
reasonable
Is
to?
it 5, is
I-
it 7?
But
I don't know.
is it reasonable, what I'm asking,
I
is
know.
it reasonable to put,
A time
a
limit
time
on
limit on
it.
it?
I think it could be.
So,
you know,
I
don't-
think it could be.
and
I'd
the
like to
entire
hear
board
from
makes
my
that.
owners. I'd like to hear from my owners, I think they don't
Yeah.
care, so it's like.
All right, so we'll get to that point. They'll be able to speak.
But as a board collectively, we get to all talk about it and decide whether it's a 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, 2-year.
Take into
I mean,
consideration.
we'll take,
Or
or
even
you don't
an
put a
up
limit
to
on
or
it.
we
this
don't put
many.
a limit on it.
Or you make it an up to this many, and then it's gotta be done.
Or you say
You know,
as
Jeremy,
they have to
what
be
would you rather?
changed.
Put a limit on it, or just don't even put a limit?
I would, if you don't put a limit on it, because if you put a limit on it, that means you gotta start planning for it. If you don't put a limit on it, then you're not gonna plan for it, and there's gonna be other stuff that comes up. So, and that would. I
So
think-
you could kind of ultimately budget for it.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah.
could in that amount of time.
And, when
5
you-
years, I think, is a
So in your
reasonable.
decision making, I'm not saying ignore like the individual directors, take their
Oh,
input,
yeah.
take the input from the
Yeah.
section
So-
owners, but ultimately it's your decision.
Let-
Because you have to make those tough decisions sometimes that people don't wanna hear.
Right.
Let
Let
me,
me ask a question, please.
sure.
How much did it cost for the stucco on your building?
I think they're about a couple grand an end, so.
How many ends did you have
$10,000,
done?
I think,
Ten?
$10,000, something like that.
Okay, because we'd be looking at somewhere in the vicinity of about 50,000 to do the last 2 buildings.
Sure.
In the same product.
I know, I know the reserve statute, so I teach it in my class, but I'm gonna ask the question. Can they have a temporary reserve line item that ends when the money's spent? So, in other words, if they have, for Nancy has a roofing fund for reserve. Can she have a replacement roofing fund for 5 years, and at the end of that, whatever's left in there, supposing they get the roof done for a little bit less, rolls back into her regular roofing, just so she meets that
Like a
requirement?
sub-line item?
So-
Like a
so-
sub-line item. Charlie has building carports, whatever, he has a general building fund. Can he put a little bit, cause like you said, if stuff comes up, to make sure they're not touching that money if you're gonna put a time limit on it. Cause otherwise, how do you say to the owners, the money's sitting in building, but we have to special assess you for hurricane damage, cause that's for the gables?
Got it. So, could you, so you're talking about creating a specific line item just for the gables
In
in the
reserve.
reserve?
Yeah.
Within, like a sub,
Within
yeah.
the sub. Okay. Oh, I think you could create it, but if we're going to, and then you're saying at the end of it, eliminate that, vote it, you know, I guess if you're gonna create it with the owners.
Have to vote it with the owners.
Vote it, close it, so could we do it? I think you could, and then you just have it general, just the entire building. Okay. I don't think, I think if somebody complained to the DVPR, I could be okay with a straight face saying, you know, it was an owner created reserve, it was a specific item.
Any surplus will roll over.
And then the owners are
into-
voting to end it. And what we could do is, in the vote to create it, also, in the same vote, end it.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, my only concern is if there's another hurricane and they deplete, because we're not talking big reserves here, so if they have to deplete their reserves for repairs, but we're in year 4 of this 5-year or year 6 of this 7-year time frame, they need to know not to touch that money.
Yeah.
Because
I think another big hurricane, I'm pretty sure the rest of it's coming off, so.
that's what I'm saying. I'd be leery of putting the time limit on it just for that purpose. If you had fully funded reserves, if you guys decide to go with the reserve study and we're gonna
Well,
start fully funding,
and that's-
that would be different.
And
but
that
you
was
do
my
not.
question, because Edna, you have all siding. So would that same time limit apply to her in regards of, okay, let's just say one end came off,
Now the clock starts ticking.
now the clock starts, you got 5 years to
To do
replace
the
the
rest.
rest.
To do the rest, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd put a timer.
I'm just gonna tell you, I think my owners are gonna vote it down. I just don't think they're gonna wanna set aside a reserve amount. That's just the mood that people are in.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
if they get damaged, they're gonna wanna
Well,
redo them, but.
And I don't think we have to decide this right now tonight,
Okay.
and, I mean, I'd like to think hopefully moving forward, we can start funding reserves, we have to. We have to, we have to fund reserves.
Before we open the floor up on these 2 items, what's your recommendation to the board as to what we do for these 2 items right now tonight? What's your final, do this or don't do this or?
Okay. So, if I understand from you, you do plan to have the full color. Okay. And eventually have them all, and then it's no real plan to replace the other half if they're still functioning and still, you know, keeping water out of the buildings. It make me have a little bit less anxiety. Just, it seems like there's gonna be a low threshold of your owners if a lot of them are financially strapped. They're not gonna go out and likely sue. So it does reduce the likelihood somebody's gonna do a material alteration challenge. But if I could get everything I wanted for Christmas, I would ask you to put it out for a vote at some point in the future. If it's not now, lump it in with another vote just to confirm the change in the color of the roof and the change in the materials, and provide the authority to finish the building even if it's 10 years down the road. That would make me feel better, but in either instance, you know, understanding now that the financial constraints that everybody's under, I don't think the challenge is gonna be, likely the challenge is that great. So I would like a vote, but if you don't do it, I think, we can always try to ask for forgiveness later if somebody complains and files a lawsuit. Run back to the owners and try to
But that
get out of the
cluster's roof will forever be different than all the
No,
rest.
because one day I'm gonna put up the same roof in about 3 years.
So that goes to the thing of,
Well,
okay.
but wait, now, so you're deciding that that's
If
the
we
roof that we're gonna
decide-
use, does
well-
this decide
well, this is what
that
we have
that's
to-
the roof
that's what
that's
we
going
have to
forward?
decide.
Michael,
Is if she okays it, if her people okay it.
Right.
And she's got the newest roof, my roof is gonna be the next one. So.
But is that the new roof
I
now?
would want to
For
you
a
already
change them.
know this, but Tom and I have spoken about doing material alterations throughout the complex, changing some colors. Not the building per se, because too many of them have recently been painted. In my opinion, he's got a different view on that, and we have to put that